So today I'm going to be talking about a very rare special little car, a 1961 Morris Minor Million. Now, for those that don't know, back in late 1960, the Morris Minor was the first British car to sell 1,000,000 units, and to celebrate they decided to bring out a limited edition run of cars. This was also another first for Britain, as no one else had done this previously. So back in December 1960 they produced 350 Minor Millions, which was basically a standard 948 Morris Minor underneath, but there were a few differences, most notably the lilac paintwork. There were a few other differences which I'll go through later in the video as well. So out of the 350 produced, they made 30 in left-hand drive, and these ones were sent to Europe and to North America. And then the remaining 320 were right-hand drive, and they sent one to every BMC dealership across the UK. So when it came to the official launch date on the 4th of January, every BMC dealership across the UK was able to unveil their own Minor Million. They were quite slow to sell, some of them, because it was quite a rare colour at the time, quite unique. And this one was no exception. It didn't end up getting sold until the 27th of April that year, nearly 4 months after it was first unveiled. This is number 221, so it's got a chassis number of 1,221,000, and it was bought by Tom in December 2019. At the time he worked for Jag Land Rover, and there was an employee-only auction. It was sealed bid, so Tom didn't know who he was up against. So he just did a bit of research, saw what previous ones had sold for, and what he thought it would be worth given the condition, because she hadn't actually been on the road in 10 years. So he put in his bid, and sure enough he won it. Obviously it hadn't been on the road in so long, so it was in the garage straight away, and he made it roadworthy and got it through an MOT, and then we were able to start enjoying it. So now I'm going to give you a quick tour around the car and tell you a bit more about its history. So I'll just explain a little bit more about how Tom came to own this car. Having owned a Morris Minor since he was 15, and having owned many more since then, he was always aware of Minor Millions, but they're the sort of car that are so hard to come by he never expected to own one. This particular Minor was originally part of the James Hull collection. James Hull once owned the UK's largest and one of the world's biggest private car collections. In 2014, he put the entire collection up for sale for £110 million. The collection consisted of 543 classic cars, including around 130 Jaguars and a handful of Morris Minors, amongst others. 5 of those Minors were Millions. The collection ended up being bought by Jaguar Land Rover for an undisclosed sum. Over the years, any cars that were no longer wanted as they weren't Jag Land Rover cars were auctioned off. In fact, the previous year, in one of their auctions open to the general public, another of the Millions sold for £7,920, despite being in need of a full restoration. So as well as the lilac paint, another distinguishing feature of the Minor Millions were the Million badges on the bonnet and boot. The larger one on the boot was actually constructed by joining 2,000 badges from the Minor Thousands together. There was a single person given this job in the factory back in 1960. The 2 smaller ones on the side of the bonnet were made specially though. Another feature of the Millions were the chrome embellishers on the wheels. These ones aren't perfect, but thankfully this car came with all 4, unlike a few other cars in the James Hull collection that were missing theirs. The final difference is the interior. Millions were fitted with white leather seats with black piping. Obviously these seats aren't the best example, but for now they're usable and we don't have to worry about them too much. Tom did manage to source a new back seat last year, already reupholstered in the correct colour scheme, but after test fitting them in the car, it just highlighted how bad the front seat and the door cards were. so he decided to swap them back out for the tatty ones for now, until we have the full interior ready to go and can fit them all at once. All very subtle differences in the grand scheme of things, but they all make the Minor Millions the special and unique cars that they are. Now, it's no secret that this car needs a lot of work cosmetically, but for now we're enjoying using it as it is, seeing it is possibly the last on-the-road unrestored Million. Most others, you see, have undergone full restos. Although this one will get the same treatment someday, it's nice to know that she's a little bit different for now. The paint isn't great and there's a lot of patina, but it's all solid with the exception of the boot lid. But we already have a replacement one ready to go, it just needs paint. The bumpers have already been replaced by Tom, as the originals were very dented and misshapen, hence they look a lot tidier now than the rest of the car. The paint on the car is mostly brush painted, which we've since found out was done by a previous owner to get the car looking presentable for his daughter's wedding. The same owner was also responsible for a few other fixes, including replacing the rear wings with some spares he had lying around, which some of you may notice are incorrect as they're high-cut wings from a Lowlight or Series 2 Moggy. He also replaced the windscreen wipers with those of a later Minor, which meant making new holes in the bodywork. So this was one of the first jobs Tom did, converting them back to the original clap-hand wipers. Something strange the car came with too was fiberglass covering the floors. We're assuming this was done to protect the floors, sort of like a pond liner, but Tom was very quick to remove this as the rear window was leaking and he didn't want any moisture getting trapped between the fiberglass and the floor. The trafficators have also been reinstated and are now in working order again. Oh, and a sticker of our local car club, the Coventry and Warwickshire branch of the Morris Minor Owners Club. Tom is actually the chairman of the branch, and we have lots of active members who attend monthly meets, well, before COVID happened. So if anyone is local with a Moggy, you should definitely join us. Plus their logo is a car art by Emily Creation. Now to show you under the bonnet. Obviously I said at the start that Millions were all just standard 948cc engined Moggies. However, at some point in the past, this one was swapped out for a 1098. For now it's not an issue, as we get that extra little bit of power, but when the car does eventually get restored, she'll more than likely be taken back to original. Anyway, we're loving Million ownership, it's just a shame we haven't been able to use her too much recently. We had a big run shortly after we got her. So I mentioned Tom got her roadworthy and through an MOT in the first few weeks. Well, straight after that we headed over to North Wales to visit Tom's family. There was one small issue of a fire. We started to smell burning while out for a drive and spotted a few flames coming out from under the dash. No problem though, as Tom very calmly blew them out as he drove along. I can't say I was quite as calm. Some wires were touching under the dash that had just caused this, so Tom quickly resolved the issue and we drove the remainder of our trip fault-free. So thank you so much for watching my video on the Minor Million. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you did, please like and subscribe to my channel.